If you were trapped in an empty swimming pool with nothing but a couch, a potted plant, a roll of duct tape, and a crocodile, what would you do? It's unclear what our hero did in a past life to warrant this level of divine punishment. All I know for sure is that God hates this man, and if at any point during the video you start to think that things couldn't possibly get any worse for him, you better think again, cause our guy's got straight up Greek tragedy levels of grief waiting for him around every corner. Let's watch. I'm going to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat the pit of death in the pool. Day works in film production. After running himself ragged to wrap up some smug director's magnum opus, he decides to take advantage of the set location to catch some much-needed R&R. After all, this place might be out of business, but it's still a swimming pool, so why not make the most of it while you and your dog have it to yourselves? It's not like anyone's checking up on it. And yet, for reasons that are never explained, Day's Trilby trash friend and colleague, Mayum, decides to start draining the water while he's still inside. And while he does warn him about it before taking off, I mean, what's the rush? I'm sure Day's perfectly capable of pulling a lever whenever he's done sleeping on the job. Oh well, time to get out before you wind up chewing through your own intestines a la Chuck Palahniuk. That's where my head's at anyway. However, it seems our hero would rather just hit the snooze button and let nature take its course. Guess we'll see how that works out for him. Wow, what an oddly predictable twist of fate. And since the pool doesn't have any kind of ladder that our guy could use to climb out on his own, he's pretty much screwed unless someone comes by. Although, on the positive side, I think that there's still a pretty good chance of that happening. You see, back during the intro, Day's girlfriend, Koi, came to visit him while on set. And since she's been blowing up his phone all afternoon, I gotta believe it's only a matter of time before she shows up. So no, there's no reason why we need to go ripping out our fingernails trying to Spider-Man this shit. All we have to do is sit tight while the water slowly drains and hope to God she wasn't calling to break up. But of course, you and I both know there is exactly zero chance that our protagonist is going to do that. Still, I do have to give the guy credit for mixing up his approach. When it becomes clear that he won't be able to self-rescue, Day starts putting his effort into retrieving his cell phone, albeit in a manner that has very little chance of working out. Nerds. Are you tired of spending hundreds, if not thousands of dollars attempting to psyop those around you? I know I am. And that's why I've been using Scentbird for a while now, to make subtle forms of mind control more affordable than ever, using the power of fine fragrances. Each month, Scentbird ships a 30-day supply of your desired fragrance straight to your door in one of these handy little bottles. Perfect for travel, field touch-ups, or even EDC, if you want that constant scent security. Of course, the whole point is to help you find what's right for you. So if at any point you feel like a certain scent isn't quite working out, you can easily adjust your order to try out something new in the next month's delivery. And with over 900 options to choose from, you're sure to find the right tool for the job. We're talking popular brands like Prada and Versace, and even more niche labels like Parfums de Marly and Roja if you're wanting something out there. This month I've been trying 3 awesome samples. First up, we've got Icy Fizz by JUS. It's got that addictive sparkling smell that leaves them hanging on your every word. We've also got Awakened by Toomey, for whenever I need to exude confidence and male energy to strong-arm those crooks in my repair shop. And last but not least, there's Karoka Heart by Juicebox. And yeah, I just like the way it smells. Something about that tropical citrus aroma just makes me feel like it's all gonna be okay. So if you're looking to elevate your smell game, don't waste time and hundreds of dollars rolling the dice on expensive full-sized bottles. Instead, just scan this QR code or head on over to Scentbird.com and use my promo code 55NERD to get 55% off your first month. That's 55NERD at Scentbird.com to get your first 30-day sample for only $8. The next month will only be $16.95. For real, tying your glasses onto your bathrobe belt and using it as a grappling hook just seems like a great way to break your glasses. Sure, maybe if it were already teetering on the brink and just needed a little last nudge to slide off, this strategy might work. But in this case, he needs to drag his phone out from under a towel and across a coarsely textured surface, so we'd probably need something a bit more substantial. With that in mind, I would fasten the belt to one of the loops on the robe and then toss that up instead. This way, the increased weight and friction will allow him to drag both the towel and the phone over to the ledge. Although on the downside, it could be kinda difficult for him to tell when it was about to fall off. And since the current water level's more than enough to penetrate an IP67 rated device, that could be a serious problem if he's not able to catch it in time. That said, if he's unable to reach the phone, it's as good as broken anyway, so he might as well give it a shot. But wait, what if we didn't actually need to physically reach the phone at all? Looking at the design, this appears to be an iPhone 7, which means it should be equipped with voice control. Assuming this is the case, all they really has to do is ask Siri to dial up Thailand's emergency number, 191, and he'd be home in time for dinner. Ultimately, it's unclear whether Day ever even activated this feature in the first place, but he might not actually need it. Turns out, all he had to do was wait for the vibrations from Koi's constant calling to drive it over the edge. However, just when it looks like our guy's got his ticket out of here, he suddenly hears the cries of his dog, Lucky, who just fell into the pool. Ordinarily, this wouldn't be a problem, as Lucky's proven to be an excellent swimmer, but unfortunately, Mayhem went and leashed him up onto the handrail within perfect hanging distance of the pool. So now, our hero is forced to choose between getting out of this mess and stopping Fido from doing a jig. Except, not really. Looking at Lucky's predicament, he's still managing to hold himself up with his front paws, so at least for the moment, there's no risk of strangulation. Knowing this, I would use the glasses trick to quickly knock the phone down, and then leave it on the narrow groove in the wall while going over to help. Although, if I'm being honest, I don't think there's all that much we could actually do for him. Sure, in the movie, Day uses the pool floaty to boost him back up to safety, but like, come on. We all know that that plastic POS would have folded over the second he put any weight on it. Ah well, if it works, I guess. Now, getting back to the phone. I find it odd that Day wouldn't immediately kick off the wall and Michael Phelps's back to it as quickly as possible. Hell, at the very least he could try chucking the pool floaty over there on the off chance it landed underneath. But instead, he just treads water in place for a solid 8 seconds until the device comes tumbling into the pool. It's not over yet though. As it turns out, Day left his phone plugged into a poolside power outlet. Not the safest thing in the world, but I'll definitely take it. Anyway, we can see that the phone is dangling roughly a foot above the groove. And this means we won't be able to reach it from the current water level. So, what can we do? Well, the smart thing would be to bring the floaty back over and climb on top of it like Day did earlier. From that position, it would be well within reach, and then we could simply lie back down to keep from falling in while we called for help. However, it appears that our protagonist has completely forgotten about that, and so instead he decides to pull himself up using the groove and swing wildly at the phone with an outstretched hand. Oh, and would you look at that? It fell into the water. Well, that's just great. Still, there's no reason to go throwing a temper tantrum and dumping the phone just because it got wet. Sure, it's not working right now, but from what I found online, iPhones will often shut down upon being submerged to prevent short-circuiting, so there's still a chance, however small, that it could come back to life if we let it dry out. To that end, I say we put it on the floaty until the pool's finished draining. Then, once our clothes dry out, we'll cover the phone with our shirt to protect the screen and leave it out under direct sunlight in the hopes that any remaining moisture winds up evaporating. Will it work? I'm not entirely sure. An IP67 rating means the phone is only water resistant down to 1 meter, and since it went way deeper than that, there's a good chance it's probably toast. In any case, there's certainly no harm in trying, and since we've got nothing but time, we might as well give it a shot. One thing to keep in mind, however, is that you never want to try turning your phone back on until the insides have completely dried out. So I'm thinking we keep it as a last resort in case Koi doesn't show up. Until then, our best bet is to simply remain vigilant and listen for any signs of nearby foot traffic. Day also has a whistle around his neck that he used to train Lucky, so every once in a while, it'd be a good idea to let off a 3-blast distress signal in case somebody's within earshot. Of course, it's also the command for Lucky to jump in the pool, and since we don't want a repeat of that last episode, we might want to hold off on that. Guess it all depends on how much you love your dog. Anyway, for some reason, Day decides that he needs to dive down to the bottom of the pool and plug up the drainage grate with his bathrobe, as if there's literally any chance that that's actually gonna make a difference here. I mean, even if draping your thin cotton robe over the opening could fully stop the flow of water, which it can't, you've already determined the level is too low for you to escape, so you might as well let it all drain out and get yourself some solid ground. And sure, hydration could become an issue if we're stuck down here long enough, but we could easily save some emergency drinking water in the white bucket we used on set, so it's not that big a deal. No, right now the only thing that we need to worry about is keeping our ears open for someone nearby, which we're not going to be able to do if we're underwater, even for a little bit. After all, there's no telling when a random passerby or even another member of the production staff might come through. It could be 5 hours from now, it could be 5 seconds from now, and if we're not paying attention if and when that happens, we're not getting out. And wouldn't you know it, just as Day dips below the surface, who else but the local product placement rolls in to drop off the freshly thawed out pie that Ma'am ordered for him. And just to make matters worse, our hero's keychain winds up getting caught on the grate, keeping him trapped down there just long enough for the delivery driver to hop back onto his moped. Now, I gotta say, it is kinda ridiculous that the pizza guy would see the dog chained up right beside the edge and not think to look down into the crystal clear water. But in his defense, he probably didn't think anybody would be dumb enough to swim inside a draining pool. And besides, dude's got money to make. Those pizzas aren't getting any colder. Ah well, at least this unfortunate outcome will serve to teach Day the importance of maintaining situational awareness in life or death situations. Nah, he actually just goes right back to sleep, cause, you know, nothing bad happened the first time. And sure enough, here comes Koi to tragically misread the situation. Bro, you need to stop falling asleep. Then again, who the hell sees a half-drained swimming pool and thinks it'd be a good idea to jump right in? Give it another hour or so and that bounce off the diving board would have been the least of her problems. And yes, I understand the sight of Day casually snoozing on the floaty doesn't exactly scream imminent danger. But the thing is, dude's diabetic. Koi knows this. And so seeing him passed out in a strange place like a half-empty pool should have been cause for concern. At the very least, I would have expected her to try and wake him up just to make sure that he was okay. But I guess the opportunity to scare him half to death was simply too good to pass up. Looks like the joke's on her though. Actually, it's on them both, as now there's no one left with a reason to come out here. All I can say is that I sure hope at least one of them told somebody else where they were going. Otherwise, they could easily be stuck in this thing for days. And judging by that massive crack in the back of Koi's skull, she doesn't have that long. As a matter of fact, neither does Day. Without his insulin injections to break down stored glucose, his blood sugar levels will continue to rise until he goes lights out. But more on that later. For now, all our hero can do is keep Koi above water while he waits on a miracle. But like I said in the intro, God hates this man, and also his girlfriend, and their dog. And so instead of swiftly delivering them from this fate of their own making, the man upstairs decides to spice up their little pool party with the inclusion of his own perfect killing machine. That's right, the pygmy shrew. No, wait, a crocodile. That sucks. It's the Croc's pool now, at least until it's done draining. All we can do in the meantime is stay still and try not to look appetizing. But hey, at least it'll probably keep Day from clonking out again. one can only hope. Fortunately, once morning rolls around, the situation becomes a little less bleak. At this point, all the water's been completely pumped out, leaving the handbag nowhere to hide. But while that might make their new best friend slightly, keyword slightly, less dangerous, it doesn't change the fact that they're still locked in here with it. What's more, Koi's condition is showing no sign of improvement, and if that split in her head doesn't kill her, infection definitely will. Realizing this, Day starts looking around for something that he can use to cover the wound, when he suddenly spots a roll of duct tape. Only problem is, it's inside the crocodile's mouth. So yeah, nothing to do now but reach on in with our puny human arm so we can finally see what that whole death roll thing is about. For real though, dude cannot seriously be thinking about grabbing the tape with his bare hands, right? I've seen enough Animal Planet to know a crocodile's tongue is basically a god trigger. Once something touches it, the jaws will reflexively snap shut in less than 50 milliseconds. And at that point, anything inside is going to stay inside until Mr. Crocodile says otherwise. Just grab the branch from that stupid movie prop and use it to swat the roll out from a distance. Sure, it still might not be fast enough, but at least then you won't have to worry about getting your arm ripped off. Plus, approaching the croc from the side like that is as bad as coming at it from the front. Maybe even worse when you consider how fast they can whip around. And the fact it seems to be asleep right now doesn't make this any better. You see, crocodiles are capable of unihemispheric sleep, wherein they basically shut down one half of their brain at a time and use the other half to scan for threats or food, which is you. So there's no shortage of reasons why getting close to this thing is a really, really bad idea. And yet, by some absolute miracle, Day manages to walk away from the situation with both the tape and all his body parts. And that's way more of a win than he actually realizes. For you see, the usefulness of duct tape is only limited by the strength of one's imagination. When stretched out flat, you can tear it apart with your bare hands. But if you twist it into a cord, you can forget it. So here's what I'm thinking. Looking up at the top, we can see a long metal pole holding up a mirror right beside the edge of the pool. It's anchored in concrete, so there's no chance it'll go anywhere if we start putting weight on it. And that's exactly what we're going to do. We'll start by unwrapping 13 yards of tape and twisting it into a cord while leaving it attached to the rest of the roll. This'll give us more than enough length to clear the 6.5 yard wall, wrap around the pole, and come back down to within arm's reach. At which point, we'll pull out another 13 yards and repeat the process until it's all used up. It's difficult to say for sure, but the roll Day has could hold as much as 40 yards, which would be enough for 3 full wraps while also compensating for the twist. However, we could probably get by with only 2 if it's a bit shorter. And of course, as the roll depletes, it'll keep losing mass. So eventually we'll want to fasten the throwing end to a stick or rock or something to give it some extra heft. Once that's done, we'll twist the strands together to form something resembling rope and begin our ascent up the side of the pool. And yes, before you ask, I really do think that this could work. In fact, during my super scientific testing at the nerd lab, i.e. Martin's apartment, I was able to lift and hold 90 pounds consistently using a single wrap. In this case, we'll have at least twice that amount. So, assuming Day weighs less than 180 pounds, we should be in business. Now, full disclosure, that was using Gorilla Tape, and while it's impossible to tell which brand Day is using here, my understanding is that gaffer tape tends to be similar, if not outright superior in terms of its tensile strength. But I'll let you guys fight about that in the comments. Anyway, while this plan is totally genius in every sense of the word, it's not without its drawbacks. Chief among them being the fact that we'll have to leave Koi behind, in the pool, where the crocodile is. But only for a couple minutes. I mean, there has to be a ladder around here somewhere, right? And even if Day's not strong enough to haul her out over his shoulder fireman style, he can easily tie her onto the gaffer rope and hoist her up that way. Problem solved. Unfortunately, it seems that Day has totally given up on any notion of climbing out of this nightmare and has instead turned his attention downward. specifically towards the drainage grate in the middle of the pool. And while there's nothing that might suggest it leads back up to the surface at any point, I certainly can't blame the guy for trying. And so, with the help of Koi's deeply troubling razor blade pendant, our hero loosens the bolt securing the grate and begins preparing to make his escape. Yeah, notice I said his escape? Dude's actually planning to leave her up here with the reptile for an indeterminate period of time, and all the while, he'll be totally incapable of keeping an eye on her, let alone stopping the croc from ripping her limb from limb. So yeah, just be patient, Koi. It'll all be over soon. Oh, this is also right after he found the positive pregnancy test that she had in her pocket, so do with that information what you will. However, before Dave can bravely sacrifice his baby mama to save his own skin, who else but nature's living garbage disposal foils his noble plan by beating him to the drain? That's right, it's the crocodile that saves Koi. Evidently, it was clocking our protagonist's ham-fisted approach to family planning and decided to subtract itself from the situation entirely. Works for me though. I say we put the bolts back in the grate and forget it ever existed. After all, we've already found our exit strategy. Plus, if nothing else, at least it takes the handbag out of the equation. But no, it seems Day is simply bound and determined to put his loving girlfriend in mortal danger. And so, throwing caution to the wind, he hops down into the tube and begins the slow crawl to freedom. And it's a dead end. Son of a bitch! Okay, to clarify, there is a small chamber down at one end with a hatch leading up to the surface, but it's sealed with a padlock. And here we are, fresh out of bobby pins. So basically, this was nothing but a total waste of time, and a dangerous one at that. Not only was Day risking near instant dismemberment by blindly sticking his leg down into the drain, he also would have been facing certain death had he run into the crocodile. Just think about it. A croc of this size can potentially run as fast as 11 miles an hour. That is a hell of a lot faster than you can move on your hands and knees. And just to top it all off, dude didn't even think to recover the drain after he left, which means that at any point, it could easily crawl back up to the surface and start snapping up Koi while he's too far away to stop it. And sure enough, the sound of Lucky barking draws his attention up to the nearby mirror, wherein he sees this exact scenario about to play out. Fortunately, as we all know, the Siamese freshwater crocodile is famous for its love of building dramatic tension, giving our hero just enough time to swoop in for the save. Get rotated. No, for real though, this thing has got to go. Of course, without any weapons, we probably won't be able to kill it, but at the very least, we might be able to restrain it using the materials that we have at hand. You see, as I'm sure you've probably already heard at some point, crocodiles and alligators cannot exert very much force while opening their jaws, literally to the point where you could hold them shut with your bare hands. Now, obviously, we can't afford to sit around clutching this thing's snoot for days on end. But since we clearly aren't going to use the gaffer tape for anything worthwhile, we might as well spend some of it wrapping up the croc. We'll start by waiting for it to fall asleep, which shouldn't take terribly long as they're known to sleep for as much as 17 hours a day. However, now that Koi's awake, we could also lean on her to distract it while we make our move. Either way, the first thing that we'll want to do is come up behind the croc and toss the bathrobe over its eyes to blind it, as this will make it much slower to react during the ensuing struggle. And you'd better believe that that is important, as eventually we're gonna have to put our hands dangerously close to its mouth. Anyway, phase 2 will start the instant we see the robe hit the crocodile's head. It is at this point we will launch ourselves onto the creature's back, ideally landing up near the shoulders, and proceed to press down on the back of its neck as hard as we can to pin its head down. Doing so will force the croc's mouth shut and keep it from reopening, at which point we'll be ready to move on to phase 3. Also, during this time, we'll want to have our knees on the ground, squeezing it from the sides with our heels hooked under the back legs. This action will effectively keep the croc immobilized, but most importantly, it'll stop it from rolling, thereby ensuring that it can't wriggle out from under us and start ripping our Now, once we're certain old TikTok ain't going anywhere, we can start walking our hands one at a time along the top of its head until we get a firm grasp around the snoot. From there, we can either have Koi swoop in to start taping it shut, or handle it ourselves if she's not feeling up to it. The latter is definitely going to be tricky though, as it'll require us to change hands a few times. But as long as we maintain constant pressure on the jaws, there really isn't anything that it can do to stop us. And voila! We have now added a swamp creature to our inventory. I'm sure this will come in handy later during PvP. And yes, I recognize that this can't possibly be as easy as I've made it sound, but at the end of the day, we have to do something. After all, this thing was just about half a second away from gnashing Koi up like a hot dog. There is no way in hell that I'd be able to sleep at night knowing that it was still roaming around. Of course, we wouldn't necessarily have to spend another night here if we put more effort into getting out, but that's all the more reason that we can't have a crocodile running around dividing our attention. In any case, whatever our protagonists are going to do, they'd better do it quick, as Day's severe lack of insulin is clearly becoming a problem. It's difficult to say how long someone with his condition can survive like this, but from what I've found online, it could be anywhere for a few days to maybe a week, and you can bet he's not going to be feeling up to much as the end draws near. And yet, despite both Day's worsening ketoacidosis and Koi's untreated brain injury, neither of them takes literally any meaningful action towards changing their situation for 2 whole days. Seriously, what the hell are you people doing? With each passing second, you're becoming weaker and weaker, and eventually, you won't even have the strength to lift your own arms, much less climb up the side of the pool. And besides, now that Koi's in the fight, they can potentially boost her up to the groove underneath the ledge so she can reach the top. It's obviously worth a try, so why pretend like you're still in the same situation that you were on day 1? It doesn't make any sense. But oh well, at least they ultimately come around to this notion eventually, you know, on day 4. Although credit where it's due, they do come up with a pretty solid strat for dealing with a crocodile. Good enough for me. Unfortunately, this is the last good decision that they'll be making for the rest of the movie. You see, like I said earlier, it makes perfect sense that they would try boosting Koi up to the ledge, and this is exactly what they do, only in the dumbest way possible. First off, they make their attempt out in the middle of the wall, where they can't take advantage of the groove. Had they gone for the corner instead, the grooves in the adjoining walls would have come together at a 90-degree angle, allowing Koi to step up from Day's shoulders and plant one foot on either side of the vertex while leaning into the walls. With her base now behind her center of mass and the corner supporting her from the front, she would be able to maintain her balance long enough to establish a comfortable hand position on the top, push off the groove, and to lift herself out. However, because they opted for the middle, Koi won't be able to put both feet in the groove without falling backwards, meaning her only option is to grab the top ledge, which she clearly cannot reach. But okay, fine, let's just assume that they're both terribly afraid of corners. She could easily just start by standing on Day's head to give herself the extra several inches that she needs to reach the top. At that point, it's just a matter of heel hooking her way over the edge, and they're home free. Oh, wait, I just remembered that Day's head is soft and squishy, like a household sponge. Okay, well, then why don't they just bring the bucket over, tape it down onto the ramp, and then rest one end of the couch on that so she can reach it from his shoulder. If the couch starts sliding, tape that down too. In fact, if they really wanted to get creative, they could make a gaffer tape rope like I mentioned earlier and use it to pull down the metal table sitting up beside the ledge. Doing so would allow them to prop the couch up even higher. Plus, it would also come with the added benefit of getting Day the insulin shot that Mayhem left out for him. Anyway, my point here is that there's plenty of ways that they could make this work, but after barely trying one of them for all of 5 minutes, Day decides it is simply impossible. I'm sorry, you're gonna let the croc back up? What the hell does that have to do with anything? Not to mention the fact that it is gonna be extra off when it realizes you idiots hard-boiled its offspring. But no, it seems the way Day sees it, their only option at this point is to try and escape through the drainage tunnel. Of course, we already know that one side of the tunnel is a no-go, but Day is certainly right in that we don't know what's behind door number 2. Still, I don't think it's likely to be any better. After all, if the pool owners sealed the maintenance hatch with a padlock and bolted down the grate in the pool, why would they leave some other access point open for business? Well, whatever. It's always possible, I guess. What I really take issue with is the fact that they're just gonna let the crocodile roam free again and assume that it won't become a problem later on. Yeah, screw that. If we're gonna do this, that thing has got to be out of the picture. So I say the second it pops out of the drain, we run the same distraction/duct tape combo I talked about earlier. Or alternatively, we could just beat it to death from a nice safe distance using the long metal pipe that fell down back on day 3, whichever seems easier. And yes, it absolutely has to be this way, as there's no telling whether or not we'll be forced to return to the pool. And considering how aggressive Mama Croc became after finding her raided nest, there is no way that I'd be willing to pop my head back up through the drain without knowing for sure that she's down for the count. But apparently, Day and Koi just aren't all that worried about it. And so, after covering the drain behind them, they head down into the tunnel in search of a way out. Unfortunately, they don't get far, as it seems Day's diabetes picked this exact moment to achieve critical mass. However, just when it looks like this is where the sidewalk ends, our hero miraculously finds his insulin case under a nearby pipe. Turns out, Mayhem knocked it down into the maintenance hatch while cleaning up the place, although some might call it divine intervention. Not me though. Remember, God hates this man, so if it's at all true that he willed this to happen, it's only because he plans on torturing him some more. At any rate, now that our hero's blood sugars dropped back down to normal levels, he and Koi can finally go explore the rest of the tunnels. But before they can get around to it, the sound of a passing paraglider flying overhead sends Day scrambling back to the pool. Much to his disappointment, however, the glider is revealed to be a remote-controlled toy. Although the way I see it, that's even better. I mean, it's not like there was any real chance the pilot would be able to hear him over the paramotor. And plus, whoever's operating this thing is almost certainly nearby. Sadly, it seems shouting alone isn't enough to get the operator's attention. And just to make matters worse, Day let his whistle get snagged up on the ladder back in the maintenance area. Yeah, I'm not sure how exactly you get your entire necklace pulled off without noticing, but regardless, the dude's not entirely out of options. Were I in his shoes, I'd grab that steel pipe I mentioned earlier and start wailing away at the walls as hard as I could. We'd want to do it in some kind of rhythm so that it sounds human in origin. Maybe something like SOS, or I don't know, raining blood. It doesn't matter, just do something besides staring blankly at the sky, you dolt. Your friggin' lives are at stake. Hell, he could have even called out for Koi to get on the whistle. She's not doing anything right now. Granted, yeah, it wouldn't go so well for Lucky being this high off the ground, but at this rate, the poor dog will probably wind up starving to death anyway. Oh well, one door closes, another one opens, as Day suddenly spots a length of barbed wire that blew down off the fence. Now, I can definitely understand the man's desire to get out of here as quickly as possible, but god dude, at least wrap your hands with cloth or something before you put your full weight on it. It's not going anywhere. And yet, for some reason, our guy lets his hands get straight up cheese grated before he even thinks about rigging up some PPE. Also, it's unclear whether Day can actually see what the wire's attached to, but if he can't, I'd say that's a pretty good reason to hold off. Otherwise, this could happen. Hear that crunch? That is the sound of finding out. Seriously though, I don't care how long I've been stranded. There is no way that I'm gonna keep climbing up that thing once it started slipping off. Again, the wire wasn't going anywhere, so why not try unraveling it to see its source and using it somewhere else, like the mirror pole. Now Day's leg is broken, his hands are minced meat, and he just joined his girlfriend in the concussion club. Oh yeah, there's also the crocodile. Remember that? Maybe instead of rigging up this pathetic excuse for a splint, he should have focused his effort on getting back underground. setting the bone isn't gonna matter much when you get your head ripped off. And we could just as easily fix something up using one of the short metal pipes back in the maintenance area. Luckily, this time around, he's able to drive the beast off with a series of well-placed bucket bongs. But it's clear the croc's getting desperate, possibly out of hunger. What's more, with Day's crippling injuries, it's unlikely he'd be able to successfully wrestle the thing into submission, even with the element of surprise. See, this is why we should have dealt with it properly when we had the chance. Now all Day can do is trap it under the couch, and he can barely manage that. Plus, we all know a flipped over sofa is anything but a long-term solution. This is definitely not over. You can count on that. But on the positive side, it does give our hero a chance to retreat back into the drain. And with nothing left to stand in his way, he can finally go investigate the light at the end of the tunnel. Spoiler alert, it's another pool. Well, I guess that figures. After all, what else was going to have a drain cover positioned at the exact same level? Still, it's not all bad. I mean, at least there's not a crocodile in it. In fact, we should probably go find Koi and bring her up here so she doesn't have to stay locked up in solitary confinement. God knows that can't be comfortable. However, it seems that after everything he's been through over the last 6 days, our protagonist has finally reached his breaking point. And it's all because he couldn't stay awake. How tragic. But like I said in the beginning, you never know when someone's gonna come wandering into this place. And sure enough, the following morning, we see the paraglider making a second appearance. Only this time, it crashes into the pool. And you know what that means. Just imagine the look on the operators' faces when Day tells them how they wound up in this mess. Nah, we're definitely gonna have to make something up. It's just too embarrassing. Or at least it would be if Day were actually around to explain it. I wonder where he is. Well, sleeping, of course. Although in this case, it's definitely understandable. Still, this is all the more reason why he should have gone back to Koi after finding the second pool. Had they been taking turns sleeping in shifts this whole time, they could have maintained round-the-clock vigilance for both potential rescuers and the crocodile. Then again, they did have Lucky around to alert them if someone came by. Actually, wait, why isn't Lucky barking his head off right now? More importantly, why the hell isn't Koi trying to call out from under the hatch? Sure, it's certainly possible she's asleep too, but if the sound of them talking was enough to wake Day up from his depression coma, why wouldn't it do the same for her? Guess we'll never find out. Ultimately, our hero is too late to signal the paraglider gang before they get out of earshot, but he's not hosed yet. Turns out, they left the pool's one flimsy bamboo ladder resting up against the ledge. There's just one problem. Can you guess what that is? That's right. The pygmy shrew is back, and it's craving a man-witch. And with Day's broken leg preventing his escape, he's left with no other choice but to settle this matter once and for all.
Cripple fight!
Question is, how? Well, since the crocodile was nice enough to give us time to prepare, we'll want to grab that long pipe that fell into the pool and use it like a spear. Of course, with our adversary's thick skull and armor-like skin, we probably won't be able to land a kill shot. At least not right away, but if nothing else, the added reach will allow us to effectively keep the croc at bay until it wears itself out. In the meantime, we'll want to aim for sensitive areas like the eyes and nose every time it gets close. Jamming the pipe down its throat would definitely be tempting as well, but as strong as its bite force is, there's a good chance it could rip the weapon out of our hands before we even had time to react. So it's probably not a good idea. In any case, as satisfying as it would be to kill this thing, that's not entirely necessary. All we really have to do is gradually circle around it until our back is facing the ladder, and then slowly start backing up while maintaining a defensive posture. But that's where the real challenge begins. You see, we can't just start climbing once we reach the ladder, as the croc could easily run up and nail us the second we turn around. Instead, we're gonna have to sit tight for a while and bludgeon this thing until it decides that we're more trouble than we're worth. Only then, once it retreats to a nice safe distance, can we finally start our ascent. So yeah, it's all very simple, just hard to do, if that makes any sense. But anyway, I'm sure you're all very excited to find out how Day handles this situation. I know I am, so let's take a look. Well, the fact that he's currently wrapping barbed wire around his fists is probably not a good sign. I mean, do you honestly think that that's gonna hurt something made out of crocodile? Moreover, do you honestly think that you'd be able to get close enough to it to use those effectively, without dying? Well, apparently the answer is yes, as that's literally all Day does to prepare. And yet, by some absolute miracle of plot convenience, the dude actually manages to get on top of its back, where he promptly pisses away any advantage he might have had by choosing to punch it instead of pinning it down. Look, I don't care how much barbed wire you have on your hands. You could not possibly hit a crocodile this size hard enough to hurt it. Period. Okay, from this position, there's only one logical move to make, and that's pinning the crocodile down and using your fingers to gouge out its eyes. Or better yet, pull one of those sticks out of your worthless splint and use those to blind it. They're sure as hell not doing anything for you. However, as much as I think Day screwed the pooch in this situation, I do have to give him credit for continuing to fight no matter what. And that's ultimately what gets him through the end of round 1. Well, that and he stabbed it in the eye with a sofa leg. Unfortunately, this isn't quite the victory our guy was hoping for, as the second he turns around, he is forced to watch as God himself reaches down and rips the ladder out of the pool. Okay, alright, it's actually because it was attached to some pipes that rolled away, but still, you gotta imagine how it must have looked from his perspective. Oh, and just to add insult to injury, Day looks up in the mirror to find the maintenance tunnel where he left Koi has almost completely filled with rainwater. You see, back when he left to go chase down the paraglider, he told her to plug the drainage tunnel with part of an old oil drum. And while that would probably work to keep the crocodile out, dude should have remembered that it has been absolutely dumping rain out here every night since they first got stuck. So I guess that's it then. Day's trapped in the pool, Koi's going to drown, and Lucky's probably not going to live up to his name. It's all very sad. Although, on the upside, Day's mental breakdown does lead up to what is undoubtedly the best scene of the entire film. Such blatant disrespect. It's not enough that he's been brought down to his knees. The crocodile wants him down on his face. All it's missing is a Tokarev pistol and a snappy one-liner. Little does the reptile realize, however, it'll be Day who gets the last word. And just when it looks like all hope is lost, he uses the last remaining stick from his crappy splint to wedge the monster's mouth open, thereby creating the perfect opportunity for him to grab the pipe and fix himself some Cajun food. Bon appetit. Well, that's one problem solved. Finally. But what about Koi and Lucky? Well, it turns out the whistle they left behind was just the right size for Koi to use it as a breathing tube. But of course, Lucky can't tell the difference. In his tiny dog mind, that sound is Day telling him to jump into the pool. So that is exactly what he does. Oof. Makes me glad my dog only knows how to shake. Still, while this would be extremely difficult to watch, it's certainly a lucky break. After all, now Day can use the dangling corpse of his canine companion to finally reach the ledge above. And with that, our hero is free to pry open the maintenance hatch just in time to find Koi lying lifeless at the bottom. It's basically the Book of Job. Nah, you already know he's gonna bring her back to life with CPR, but at what cost? In the end, Day and Koi both made it out alive. Lucky, on the other hand, not so much. However, had Day simply remained alert once he realized he had a serious problem, literally none of this would have happened, thus saving Lucky's life and sparing all of them from 7 days of absolute misery. That said, once really hit the fan, all they had to do was take full advantage of their available resources, and I'm confident that they would have made it out before the end of day 2. For that reason, I think the pool was beaten. Thanks for watching, and remember, never turn your back on a croc. Thanks again to Scentbird for sponsoring this video.